At my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner, I noticed my name wasn't on any table card. When I asked, my mother smiled and said, "We thought you'd be more comfortable watching from home." My daughter overheard and whispered, "Are we ghosts, Mommy?" The rehearsal dinner was at an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind with cloth napkins folded into swans and waiters who refill your water before the glass is half empty. My sister Claire had chosen everything herself, from the ivory centerpieces to the precise shade of blush on the bridesmaids' dresses hanging in the private room upstairs. I arrived with Emma, my 8-year-old daughter, both of us in our nicest dresses. Emma had been so excited she'd barely slept the night before, tossing and turning in her small bed in our cramped apartment. "I get to see Aunt Claire marry Uncle David," she'd whispered that morning, her eyes bright with anticipation, already planning what she'd say to her cousins. The dining room was gorgeous. Long tables draped in silk that shimmered under the chandelier light, candles flickering in crystal holders, family members already seated and chatting, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. I scanned the room for our names, looking for the table cards with their elegant calligraphy, each one carefully placed. Nothing. I checked again, walking slowly past each table, my heels clicking on the polished floor. Claire's college friends, check. David's family from Connecticut, check. My parents at the head table, positioned like royalty, check. My Aunt Margaret, Uncle Tom, cousins Jennifer and Michael, all accounted for, all smiling. Emma tugged my sleeve. "Where do we sit, Mommy?" "I'm looking, sweetheart," but I already knew. The cold feeling spreading through my stomach told me before my brain caught up. That familiar sensation of being excluded that I'd felt so many times before. My mother appeared beside me, her smile tight, her pearls catching the light. "Oh, Rachel, you're here. Of course I'm here. It's Claire's rehearsal dinner." "Yes, well." She glanced at Emma, then back at me, her expression carefully neutral. "We thought you'd be more comfortable watching from home. We're streaming it for the relatives who couldn't make it, the ones in California and abroad." The words didn't compute at first. Watching from home, like I lived across the country instead of 20 minutes away in my studio apartment above the laundromat. "I don't understand," I said carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. My mother sighed, as if I were being deliberately obtuse, as if I were a child who couldn't grasp simple instructions. "Claire wanted an intimate evening, just the wedding party and immediate family. You're not in the wedding party, so..." "I'm her sister, and you'll be at the wedding tomorrow." "This is just the rehearsal dinner, Rachel. Don't make a scene." Her tone was a warning, the same tone she'd used my entire childhood when I stepped out of line. Emma's hand tightened in mine, her small fingers trembling. Her voice was so small, barely above a whisper. "Are we ghosts, Mommy?" My mother's smile never wavered, frozen like a mask. "Don't be dramatic, Emma. Your mother just isn't on the guest list for tonight. There's limited seating, you understand." I looked past her at the dining room. 3 tables, maybe 40 people total, with at least 6 empty chairs scattered throughout. "Limited seating? Claire approved this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Claire planned it. My mother's tone was final, brooking no argument. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to check on the appetizers." "The chef is temperamental." She walked away, heels clicking on the hardwood floor, her burgundy dress swishing. I stood there frozen, Emma pressed against my side, her body rigid with confusion and hurt. A waiter approached, polite but firm, his expression apologetic. "Ma'am, if you're not dining with us this evening, I'll need to ask you to step outside. We're about to begin service." Dismissed. Like I'd crashed a party I was never invited to. Like I was some stranger who'd wandered in off the street. I drove home in silence, the city lights blurring past. Emma cried quietly in the back seat, trying to muffle her sobs. When we got to our apartment, I made her favorite dinner, mac and cheese with the dinosaur shapes she liked, adding extra butter the way she preferred. She pushed it around her plate, the pasta growing cold. "Why don't they want us?" she asked, her voice breaking on the last word. I had no answer that wouldn't break her heart more than it already was. It started when I was 16, and got pregnant during my junior year of high school. Claire was 13, still in middle school, still the baby of the family, still innocent. I was the first grandchild, the one who was supposed to go to Princeton like my father, make something of myself, become a doctor or lawyer. Instead, I had Emma. My parents didn't disown me. They were too proper for that, too concerned about appearances. But the temperature in the house dropped to freezing overnight. My father stopped looking at me directly, addressing his comments to the air beside my head. My mother sighed every time I walked into it. I helped set up the tables and chairs, arranged the flowers, then was told politely that space was limited and maybe I should head out before guests arrived. "We just don't want it to be crowded," my mother said, not meeting my eyes. "You understand," Emma noticed. She always noticed, her eyes tracking every slight, every exclusion. "Why doesn't Aunt Claire like us?" she asked once, curled up beside me on our secondhand couch. "She does," I lied, smoothing her hair. "She's just busy with wedding stuff." But busy didn't explain being erased systematically from every event, every photo, every moment. The wedding was the next day, a Saturday in early June. I'd bought a dress, a nice navy one I couldn't really afford, putting it on my credit card. Emma had a new dress too, pale pink with a ribbon at the waist and small embroidered flowers. She looked beautiful, her hair in careful curls I'd spent an hour on. We arrived at the church early. I wanted to avoid any confusion, any chance of being turned away again, any repeat of the rehearsal dinner humiliation. The sanctuary was stunning. White roses everywhere, hundreds of them, ribbons hanging from the pews in cascading silk, soft music playing from a string quartet. Guests filtered in, dressed like they were attending a royal wedding, dripping in diamonds and designer labels. I found my mother near the entrance, directing people to their seats with a clipboard. "Looking official and important. Where should Emma and I sit?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She blinked, as if surprised to see me standing there. "Oh, there's room in the back." "The back?" "The front rows are for family and wedding party." "You're not in the wedding party, so..." She gestured vaguely toward the rear of the church. "I'm her sister," I said again, the words feeling hollow now. My mother's expression hardened, her jaw tightening. "Rachel, please don't start. This is Claire's day. Just sit in the back and don't cause trouble." "I don't have time for drama." So we sat in the back, third row from the last, tucked behind a marble pillar. Emma couldn't see anything except the backs of heads and hats. She sat on my lap, craning her neck, trying to catch a glimpse of the bride walking down the aisle. The ceremony was beautiful. Claire looked radiant in her custom Vera Wang gown. David looked proud in his tailored tuxedo, and my parents sat in the front row, beaming like they'd won the lottery, my mother dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Afterward, we were herded to the reception at the Oakmont Country Club, the most exclusive venue in town. The ballroom was elegant, all cream and gold, with a band setting up in the corner and ice sculptures melting slowly on the buffet tables. I searched for our table assignment at the seating chart, a large ornate board covered in calligraphy. Nothing. Panic rose in my chest, hot and tight. Not again. Please, not again. I found my mother at the seating chart, adjusting place cards with fussy precision, moving them millimeters. "Where are Emma and I sitting?" She didn't look at me, focusing on the cards. "Rachel, I thought we discussed this." "Discussed what?" "When? The reception is for invited guests only." The ceremony was open, but the reception is private, by invitation. My hands shook, trembling so badly I had to clasp them together. "You're telling me we're not invited to my sister's wedding reception?" "Keep your voice down." She glanced around, making sure no one from the country club was listening. "Claire made the guest list. It's her wedding. If you're upset, take it up with her, not me." "Where is she?" "Getting photos taken by the lake. She'll be another hour at least, maybe 2. My mother smoothed her dress, a gesture of dismissal. "Look, there's a lovely park nearby, the one with the duck pond. Take Emma there for a bit, and when the reception's over, maybe you can stop by the house for cake." "We ordered extra. Stop by for cake." Like I was a neighbor bringing a casserole, not her daughter, not the bride's sister. Emma was behind me, silent. I turned and saw her face, pale and confused, her eyes beginning to fill. I could have made a scene. Part of me wanted to scream and cry and demand to know what I'd done to deserve this. But what would that accomplish? Embarrass Emma more? Prove to everyone that I was the problem, the difficult one, the one who couldn't follow simple social rules? So I took her hand, small and warm in mine, and walked out through the country club's marble foyer. We sat in that park for 3 hours on a wooden bench. Emma didn't ask why, didn't demand explanations. She just leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, watching ducks paddle across a pond, their movements peaceful and uncomplicated. "I'm sorry," I whispered into her hair. "It's not your fault, Mommy." But it felt like it was. It felt like everything that had gone wrong in my life was somehow my fault. Some fundamental flaw in who I was. Amy pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. "I'm going to connect you with someone. A family lawyer. A good one who specializes in estate planning. I don't need a lawyer. I just want to move on. Just hear me out." She slid a business card across the table, embossed with gold lettering. "Your parents have made it clear they don't value you. That's painful, but it's their choice. What I'm worried about is your grandmother, your dad's mother." I blinked, confused. "My grandmother? What about her?" "David mentioned she has money. Significant money from your grandfather's business. That she's been talking about updating her will, making sure everything is in order. My grandmother lived in a care facility across town, a nice place with gardens and activities. I visited her every week, brought Emma to see her, pushed her wheelchair through the grounds. She was sharp, funny, everything my parents weren't, full of stories about the old days." "What about her?" I asked slowly. "If your parents are cutting you out of family events, systematically erasing you, what do you think they're telling her? What do you think they'll do when it comes to inheritance? Do you think they'll suddenly remember you exist?" I hadn't thought about it. Money had never been the point, never been what I wanted from my family. But Amy was right. If my parents could erase me from a wedding, they could erase me from a will. They could tell my grandmother whatever lies they wanted. I took the business card, the paper heavy in my hand. That week, I visited my grandmother on a Thursday afternoon. She was in her room, doing a crossword puzzle from the newspaper, glasses perched on her nose, concentrating. "Rachel!" She lit up when she saw me, her whole face transforming. "And Emma? Come here, sweetheart." Emma climbed onto her lap carefully, mindful of her fragile bones. My grandmother was 87 now, but still fierce, still herself. We chatted for a while about school and the weather and her garden outside. Then I asked gently, choosing my words carefully, "Grandma, have Mom and Dad been visiting you?" "Not often," she said, frowning slightly. "They're busy with Claire's wedding and all the planning." "The wedding was last weekend." "Oh." She frowned deeper, confused. "I thought it was coming up soon. They said they'd bring me photos afterward, show me everything." They hadn't told her it already happened. Hadn't brought her to the ceremony. Hadn't included her in any of it. "Grandma," I said carefully, my heart racing, "have they talked to you about your will recently?" Her expression sharpened, her eyes suddenly alert. "Why do you ask that?" I told her everything. The rehearsal dinner exclusion, the wedding ceremony in the back row, the reception I wasn't allowed to attend, the years of being treated like I was invisible. I didn't cry, didn't exaggerate, just laid it out plainly like presenting evidence. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the garden. Then she said, her voice tight, "They told me you were too busy to visit, that you'd moved away to another city for work." My stomach dropped, nausea rising. "I visit every week. I've never missed a week unless you were in the hospital." "I know you do." Her eyes were wet now, tears gathering. "But they told me you didn't want to see me anymore. That you were angry about something, holding a grudge." Emma looked up from her lap. "That's not true, great-grandma. We love you so much. Mommy talks about you all the time." My grandmother hugged her tightly. her thin arms surprisingly strong. Then she looked at me, her jaw set. "Call that lawyer Amy mentioned. I want to make sure my will is ironclad, that no one can contest it." 2 weeks later, my grandmother's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, contacted my parents with new documents. She'd changed her will completely, rewritten everything. The house, the stocks, the bonds, the savings, everything was going to me and Emma. My parents got nothing. Claire got nothing. The phone calls started immediately, within an hour of them receiving the news. My mother, hysterical, her voice shrill. "You manipulated her. You poisoned her against us. This is elder abuse." I told her the truth. "That's all. You're vindictive. You always have been, always jealous of Claire." My father tried a different approach, calmer, more calculated. "Think about what you're doing to this family. Think about Claire's feelings. I didn't do anything. Grandma made her own choice based on how she's been treated." Claire called too, angry, her voice shaking. "You've ruined everything. Mom and Dad were counting on that money for their retirement. How could you be so selfish? Maybe they should have thought about that before they erased me from your wedding." She hung up without another word. A month later, my parents hired a lawyer and tried to contest the will. They claimed my grandmother wasn't of sound mind, that I'd coerced her, manipulated her, taken advantage of her age. The judge reviewed the case over several weeks. My grandmother's lawyer presented mountains of evidence.